You are wrong. Amandla. Amandla. Long live the spirit of David Mabuza, long live. Long live the spirit of D.D. Mabuza, long live. Amandla. Program directors, Minister Lamula and Deputy Minister Mhaule, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Paul Mashatile, the Mabuza and Mnisi families, former President Thabo Mbeki, ministers and deputy ministers, Premier Mandla Ndlovu, the Premier of Mpumalanga, right now, I guess I'm the only one who can mimic him. But Comrade Mandla Ndlovu has really branded himself, and many of us will try to speak like him from time to time. Judge President of Mpumalanga High Court, Justice Mphahlele, representatives of fellow African countries who are here present, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Togo Didiza, the Chairperson of the Council of Provinces, my sister Refilwe Msweni, members of Parliament, leaders of political parties, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, and fellow officials of the ANC, and members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema, and General Bantu Holomisa, okhona lapha naye, the leadership of the alliance partners who are here present, and various other organizations of the mass democratic movement, members of the diplomatic corps, traditional leaders, Kgoshi Mokoena, the president of Contralesa, who is here present, religious leaders, or Bishop abakhona lapha, General Mapwanya, the Chief of the Defense Force, as well as members of the Military Command Council, the people of Mpumalanga, fellow mourners, we are gathered here today in what I would call a solemn remembrance to honor the life of a man who in many ways has had a huge impact and contribution on our journey to a democratic South Africa. But we are also here to celebrate the life of the son of Mpumalanga and a man of the people. It is as a servant of the people for which our departed leader, Comrade David Dabe de Mabuza, will forever be remembered. David Mabuza, DD, as we all fondly knew him, was a revered leader not only in his home province, but also throughout the country. He served as our country's deputy president. He served as the premier of this province and as a deputy president of his movement, the African National Congress. When he served as a member of parliament, he also was a leader of government business, where he proved to be a renowned political strategist, always deftly navigating the very difficult balance amongst various political parties. And I guess that is why some of the members of other political parties are here today, including Julius Malema and General Bantu Holomisa, not so much to come and make sure that he's gone, but to make sure that they come and pay their own tribute to him. So Julius Malema a tlela mo go tlisa mathata o tletse mo to come and pay his tribute, and we thank him for that. And le General Holomisa akazanga la ukuzothi point of order, Madam Speaker. In all his roles, DD was often described as strategic, enigmatic, and fiercely loyal to the cause of stability and unity. Yet, despite his stature, he was forever humble. His own humble beginnings infused him with a mission to uplift our people. He was most happy when he was amongst the people, and he was a person who never isolated himself from the people of our country, and he never lost his common touch. Since the news came of his passing, we have seen throngs of ordinary citizens, traditional leaders and political leaders from across the political spectrum flocking to DD's home in Barberton to pay his respects. Such was his popularity, and such was his ability to unite people of this province. DD was not a man for standing on podiums and giving long speeches. I recall that each time I either delivered the State of the Nation address or the January 8th statement, and I went over an hour and a half, he would always say, President, so dlulisile isikhathi manje, ukhulumeka kakhulu. He was not a man for pomp and ceremony of high office. He preferred to be on the ground with the masses of our people, listening to their concerns and working to improve their lives. Over the past days, we have heard from a number of young people of Mpumalanga who have described him as a father of the community, who helped to bring development to many rural parts of this province. He was a man of sharp intellect. He was a person who was very pragmatic, and he had a deep resolve in what he did. To some, he was the cat with 9 lives, resilient in the face of political storms. I used to think that it was just a nickname, that he was called a cat. But in some conversations, he would refer to himself as uyangazi mina ngiyikati. But to many in his home province and beyond, he was a source of support, as we have heard, a provider of opportunities and a champion for rural development and education. His political activism began from a very young age. His former principal recalls how he was still in primary school when he got involved in politics, first through the Black Consciousness movement and later as a trade unionist. David Dabede Mabuza loved education, as we heard throughout this morning. When he finished high school, he chose to enter the teaching profession. We've heard outpourings of love from those that he encouraged to study. There are probably some of his former high school learners here, people who still call him Sir or Meneer, because they clung to his passion for education long after he left the classroom. Mpumalanga has so many more boarding schools in various rural parts of this province because DD wanted to eradicate the barrier to education to farm children. True to his calling, the legacy that our former Deputy President leaves us is that of being quick to respond to matters of service delivery. Today, in this province, there are families who now live in decent homes because during his door-to-door campaigns, DD tended to intervene on the spot and at some point dug into his own pockets to meet the existential needs of our people. Those houses that were built were not built after years of follow-up meetings. They were erected within months because he was not one to make empty promises, as we also had. I had the privilege of serving alongside DD for 5 years in government, and during this time, I came to know him as a person who understood the responsibility that he had been given. Minister Lamola describes the moment when we needed to decide on whether to lock the country down to deal with COVID or not. And he correctly describes the difficulty that our national executive, which his cabinet had, on whether to declare a state of disaster or a state of emergency. In the end, the decision that the cabinet took was, Mr. President, you must decide on what direction to take. I consulted with DD, and I wanted to know which way he would go. I told Minister Lamula that no, he was not correct. DD, as many of you might have known him, he was quite a direct person and quite firm in taking decisions. He said, President, let's go for a state of emergency. Kube namasotsha yonke indawo. Sivale le country. And that was DD's feeling. But at the same time, he said, Mr. President, but it is finally up to you what we should do. I opted for a much softer landing decision, which was a state of disaster. But even then, I found him dependable, reliable, and an excellent deputy president. As a leader of government business in Parliament, he worked to ensure that the will of the people was reflected in the laws of the country and in the programs of our state. In all his responsibilities as Deputy President, from land reform to dealing with the HIV and AIDS pandemic, from anti-poverty initiatives to addressing the needs of our military veterans, David Mabuza could always be relied on. We will always remember him as a unifier, as a number of speakers have said this morning. As Premier of this province, he was committed to unifying the different people of the land of the rising sun. eMaswati, amaNdebele, Bapedi, Mapulana, Indian, colored and white people of this beautiful province. In death, he has once again brought us all together across many nations as we had and continents to mourn, to pay homage, to remember and to fondly reminisce about him and his life. DD Mabuza had a very close relationship with traditional leaders and especially worked to restore the dignity of the traditional leaders of our country in this province. He did so because he stayed rooted in the culture and amongst his own kindred. The allure of high office failed to change him and to isolate him from the people. In his eternal sleep, he is demonstrating that our many differences along political, party and racial lines and the numerous disputes we may have are eclipsed by our shared desire to follow his lead in building a just, equitable and caring society. DD Mabuza stood firm for unity, the unity of his movement, a movement that he served with total commitment, and it was his lifelong dream to see a very strong and united African National Congress. He leaves behind him a legacy of someone who sought to ensure that the center could hold and that there could be strong unity of the movement that he sacrificed so much and he loved so much. He played a key role in maintaining the balance in a deeply divided political landscape in our country, as well as in his own movement. We had hoped that he was going to be with us for much longer, particularly in his time of retirement, when he would have continued playing an important role, giving guidance, giving advice on the quiet. I especially remember my conversation with him just a few weeks ago on the telephone when we spoke about the national dialogue, when he spoke fervently to me about the need for this national dialogue, and saying, as far as he was concerned, the national dialogue would forge cohesion in our country, would be able to come up with ideas that would chart the way forward for the nation. Yesterday we held the very first meeting of the Eminent Persons Group, a meeting which was attended in person by many of those who have now been chosen to give guidance and advice and to be the guarantors of the work of the national dialogue. It was indeed an excellent meeting, and I was deeply touched by the great enthusiasm that members of the Eminent Persons Group displayed in their discussions as they embark on this work of giving guidance to the national dialogue process. DD Mabuza would have been overjoyed to have heard that the process of the national dialogue is now underway. As we work together to overcome the challenges that our nation faces, we draw strength, encouragement, and comfort from the richness and profound meaning of DD Mabuza's life. The sad and untimely passing of our comrade is a time for the leaders of our country to reflect. Do we seek public office because the rewards we think can be reaped by being in public office, or do we take on the mantle of leadership and responsibility so that we may improve the lives of our people? Are we as selfless as we profess to be? Are we builders and unifiers, or do we seek to divide and to break? Now, these questions are easy to ask, but sometimes are difficult to answer. These are not just rhetorical questions. They are in many ways a call for honest reflection. True reflection about selflessness isn't about public declarations. It is shown in the quiet and often unseen moments when we choose others over ourselves, when we sacrifice comfort for the greater good of the people, when we stand firm for unity in a time of division. To build, as DD Mabuza was, to build unity is not simply to construct. It is to uplift, to strengthen, but also to heal. To unify is not to force sameness, but to draw people together in spite of their differences, to cultivate trust and to lead with empathy. But we must be honest. We are not always what we claim to be. Too many of us often say, yes, we are honest in what we say, but in the end become less honest in what we do. Too often, personal ambition takes precedence over collective progress. And too often, our words sow division. If we are serious about building something greater than ourselves, be it a movement, be it a community, or be it a nation, we must begin with humility. And we must also have great commitment and a measure of sacrifice. We must ask not just what we are fighting against, but we must ask what we are building towards. We need to let our selflessness be more than just sentiment. It should be action. Mabuza was a man of action. He was a man who was dedicated to unity in action. Let us not just say we are unifiers. We should live that unity like Mabuza did. And was not called Mr. Unity for nothing. At a time when there was disunity in the African National Congress, Mabuza sought to unite the ANC. And so with this passing, we have lost a great leader. Mabuza has left a void. In the words of King Solomon in the book of Proverbs 19:17, it says, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. I do believe that Mabuza has done his part. He has indeed done a lot to unify the ANC and to lead the various parts of the various institutions he was granted the privilege to lead with great commitment. We need to honor him, but honor him correctly by emulating him, by doing what he did to be Mr. Unity. To the Mabuza and Nisi families and his loved ones, his friends, and his political family, the ANC, we offer you our condolences. May you find comfort in the knowledge that he gave his all to his movement, to his country, and to his people. And indeed, Mabuza did give his time, his energy, and in that, as we heard from his family, at times tended to deprive his own family of the time that he could have spent with them, meaning that he did dedicate himself to a greater cause. And to you, my dear brother I am here to bid you farewell. You walked the path not always lit, through the dust of doubt, you did commit. I worked with you at close range and saw your commitment. Your voice was not always loud, but it was firm and still. You were able to shape the cause with quiet will. I saw you bear the weight of the province and the land with dignity and with fortitude. You also bore that weight with measured step and with a steady hand. Through storms and the winds, as they swayed, you were unmoved. You held the center night and day. And now, my dear brother, do rest, brave son of the African soil. I can say, as many of us do today, your work is done and your work is complete. The country remembers you. And all we can say today to you is that you should rest in eternal peace. DD, the cat of Mpumalanga, Ikati laseMpumalanga. I thank you for who you were to all of us. Thank you.